Every Cerbat Spanish Mustang is magnificent to me, but I've always wanted to see a colt. Just one Cerbat colt. I'd driven 7 hours to get a look at them, not knowing if I could find them again. The terrain here doesn't look like much until you get into it, and the layers unfold. I still depended on my binoculars, and knowing the land was a huge help. 10 years earlier, I roamed these ridges for hours, but now I had a 7-year-old daughter, and just one afternoon away felt like too much. This is really where my ability to get close to the Cerbat Spanish Mustang started, hunting with Dad. We ate every bit of the meat, and these excursions kept me going when I saw nothing. He taught me to track and read the wind and get above the animals and scope, and above all, stay patient. I don't hunt anymore, and the deer, like the Mustangs, are my friends. The deer require a lot of trust, and they have to get used to you, just like the horses. And they show a lot of expression in their eyes that you don't see in the hunting magazines. My mind swirls in these mountains to the soulful connection with these horses and the vigilant investigative journalism to try to stop horse slaughter.
Who are you?
What's it like dropping off horses?
Who are you with?
These are horse haulers in Kaufman, Texas, and earlier in the day, what I'd seen at the Dallas Crown horse slaughter plant there was unacceptable.
That story tonight.
I'd been in TV news for over 20 years, so throwing a camera in someone's face was second nature to me. I didn't think much of it then. My trip to the mountains allowed me to sort these scenes out. This footage made Nightline. It was seen in Congress. It was used by the mayor of Kaufman to help shut down the Dallas Crown horse slaughter plant.
They threw the city off the property. We're no longer able to access the property.
And I could not take the risks I did back then, especially not with a daughter. Wait a minute. Yep. It is. All right, he is about 250 yards away. up a pretty steep hill. I don't see any other horses with him. Man, it's good to see a Cerbat for the first time in so long. That's the first time in 10 years I've seen one. Black stallion. I wonder if he's the same black stallion I found with the white stallion back when I first got up this high. Now, as the more I look at him, strong legs, very muscular. This horse is in his prime. It's not the black stallion I saw years ago. That stallion had a big white stripe on his face. He was older. He hung so close to the white stallion, he didn't leave his side. Come to think of it, that 10 years ago was only one, heck, it was only about 500 yards from where I'm standing right now, right up this mountain. Look at that horse, perfectly built for this rugged outback terrain. His hooves are suction cups. Legs are always straddled like a tripod. Strong hindquarters. And the mane. That mane just says he's in charge of what's around him. And of course it says that he's free.
I've tested over 200 different herds of wild horses, including some in Canada and South America, getting the Camargue horses from Europe.
So purity, it's such a talk about
Purity doesn't exist in the wild horses, with a couple of exceptions. And the Cerbats might be the most pure, but that's largely due to being isolated for a long, long time.
Their origin, any idea how they got there? It's speculation.
I think the origin of the Cerbat horses is from the early Spanish explorers. You know, how long they actually have been on the mountain and in isolation, I can't say, but it could have been quite a long time looking at the very low variability that we see.
Looks like he could be alone, but Cerbats are never alone. And this horse isn't going to run. I have to sort through all my Cerbats from 10 years ago, and I know those horses who got close. And this fellow doesn't fit a match of any of them either. If you're laying down or creeping up on a horse, a Cerbat, they'll get skittish, they'll move away and they'll run. But I found over the years that if I'm up in the high country and I get above them and they come up to me and I'm just standing there, or I just come over a ridge, there's a certain, I don't know if it's respect or whatever it is, but they'll just look at me and accept me, and a lot of times move closer. These horses all have different personalities, and this horse reminds me of a stallion that connected with my dog Scout and I. We saw him a couple different times. I briefly mentioned that encounter with Scout in the last of the Spanish Mustangs documentary. But as I stand here, my memories are so vivid. That lead stallion, he was the one who first became curious about us, but his curiosity was more of a protection type of interest. When that stallion decided we were safe and that he had his horses watching us from a safe distance, a younger stallion approached. This stallion was completely different. His personality was one of interest. He wanted to connect. He walked right up to us and stood within 3 feet of Scout's nose, and the two just exchanged looks and smells, and they took in each other. I remember talking to Scout. I could hear him getting nervous, wondering if that horse was going to do something bad to him. And that moment just seemed to kind of last forever. It played out like something I'd never experienced before and haven't since. Scout passed away 4 years later. And as I stand here, a decade later, I remember that time with Scout. Just one of the best nights of my life, not including my family and my daughter. And those times early on finding Mustangs 10 years ago with my wife when we were young in our marriage. Looking back, it seems like you don't have the cares, but I'm sure we did then. Just wandering around, searching for Mustangs, exploring. That's just good living. It's grand. He's calm. He's probably not a herd stallion leader. He's inquisitive. He's soulful. You can just see so much in his eyes. The cactus tells a story. You would think, well, how do they survive that? Doesn't it infect? Doesn't it stay in there and cause them all sorts of health problems? No, because the Cerbats are one of the few herds that pass on a protein to fight disease and germs.
Extraordinary. The transferrin gene itself is the gene most often implicated in direct selection for a single gene. It could be that the transferrin variability was due to protection against some infectious agent that we don't know what it is, but obviously there is something selecting for that. Amazing example of that particular type of selected process. So they've always been fascinating to me. We did see evidence of old Spanish blood in the Cerbats. Their variability was low, but this new variant we found, that was only traceable to old Spanish blood.
My next trip was a washout. After the storm, there was really no time to go up into the mountains. And what I love about the Cerbats is that there is always an interesting diversion. Here, a big buckskin-looking draft horse with what might be a Cerbat. There are houses nearby, so both are probably domestic, but beautiful. I think you guys give each other some company there, don't you? On my third trip, I slept in my car to save money and to be closer to the animals at daybreak. I followed the noises. Could the wild horses have doubled back down into the valley? Could this be the group that has a colt? It was not out of the question for these horses to temporarily retreat to civilization. Although the range is considered isolated, it's really one that allows them access to where they need to be. They can get to rugged slopes that no one can negotiate, or they can sneak down low. I watched and I glassed and I checked the ears. They weren't small enough and they weren't C-shaped. Beautiful in their own right. But again, another delay. I'd have to get back into the mountains. I thought I'd gotten a glimpse of my little Cerbat dream, a colt. The family moved off quickly, and I wouldn't be able to process my footage until I got back home, but my heart raced. A balcony, many Cerbat balconies. That's what I call platforms the animals build in the high country. Flat, livable spaces they can rest or play on. All right. Oh, there he is, my first ever Cerbat colt. That black stallion is probably his dad. Same socks on his feet, same mark on his face. He is what? Gosh, he's a long way away. I know he can hear me talking, and I'm just exposing myself right now, because if I sneak around with him and Mama, they'll run. They can get away from me in a heartbeat. This country is incredibly difficult for me to traverse. Look at him, resting with Mama. They're napping. That Bryan Adams song comes to mind. Oh, he's standing up. Here I am, this is me. Man, he's a good-looking, strong colt. He knows I'm whacked right now. But my goodness, I've been waiting 10 years for that. I love the way he interacts with his mom. She is thin because she's giving him so much milk, eating like crazy, but she is an athlete. They all are. Then he lays back down. He needs that rest. He'll be on the move again soon. He knows I'm here. I'm about 250 yards away, but I'm not bothering him. That's good. Oh, here come the young stallions. These are the bachelor guys coming down the hill. Now, they're pretty good-natured. They're young, but I think they don't cause the young one any problem themselves, because they were young not too long ago. These guys all follow their routes. And this herd, you can tell, cares about that young guy. I've never seen sparring among these horses really get out of hand, and that can be due to a good lead stallion. Look at this guy. What a specimen. I think he's transitioning everybody from the morning sort of do your own thing to a group feed. He's a powerful, strong little guy already. He has already learned how to eat the scruffiest little plants. I say to myself, wait a minute. They were here 100 years ago. They were here before 1900. They were here before 1800, most likely. They were here probably sometime between 1752 and 1775. In 1752, Betsy Ross was sewing the American flag. This is so wild. I can't help but think of Spain because it's the Spaniards, and the charges against those early Spaniards are so valid and so true. But they also established missionaries, and they also had a spirit and a breeding into these horses that made them what they are today, that helped them get here to today. I will be long gone, and who knows if my family will survive in Arizona, but these guys will probably be here in 100 years.
But I kept finding out how tough the Mustangs were and how they must be under tremendous pressure considering they live on very marginal habitats for horses. And eventually I came to the realization that this may be a reservoir of genes that could have value in the future for domestic horses, and that we should probably continue to cultivate Mustangs in the wild just to preserve those set of highly selected genes for survival.
Exactly how did they get here? I know generally, but as I watched them 10 years earlier and I am among them now, I want to know what brought them here specifically. It's easy to think of the conquistador theory, and that's what I thought for a long time. That must be how they got here, from Spanish conquistadors. And when you watch them spar, you say, okay, that makes sense. These horses were built for battle. Kings and queens use them. Speed and endurance. They are conquistador-based horses. But they calm down quickly. They're very peaceful, and that makes me think of Father Kino. Father Kino built missions in the Southwest, and as I wander these hills, I think of his journeys. But he brought horses from the north coast of Africa, known as Spanish barb horses. Yes, they were Spanish, but they don't look quite like the Cerbats. And the Cerbats look a lot like the horses from the south of Spain, from Andalusia. Coronado brought 1,500 horses into Arizona in the 1500s. It makes sense to me that Coronado's horses got into the hands of Kino or one of his followers during Kino's 40 missions across the Southwest and all over Arizona. I believe Kino released conquistador-based horses from the 1500s into the Cerbats in the 1700s. It's rare to see any variation from the Spanish line, but the white stallion looks to me like he possibly could be from the south of France, perhaps Provence. His nose is a little different, the shape of his face, and the way his mane moves in the wind is unlike any other. Kathy Delary and her husband Mike are in the Cerbats hiking regularly. I'm jealous of Kathy. My dream is to get close to the animals without a woman or a dog to help me, and she's already achieved it.
Maybe it was the perfume I had on. I don't know. They're the ancient before us. They're still here. I mean, to be able to look them in the eye and have them have interest in looking at you is just, time stops. Time stops, heart rate goes up.
You often catch Cerbats in glimpses, and I thought I'd seen the white stallion again. I needed to go try to find him, and it didn't take me long. He was on a steep ridge in Vaught Canyon, again with a black horse and a brown mare.
The white stallion to me is the king. He is the strongest warrior, and he is very protective of his herd, and I would not dare get too close to him. He's probably the oldest, and I've seen him wrestle with the black stallion with the blaze. I've seen him spar, but angry too.
It wasn't uncommon for wild horses to find mates and friends similar to those they've lost. All right, you guys are doing great. That's it. Let me set the camera up. Right about there. Could this be the white stallion from 10 years ago? He was waiting for me the next day, like a sentinel atop his post, almost like he was expecting me. The night before, I'd made a slow climb to him, but today I moved up the ridge quickly, talking constantly. Here I come. Another step, 2, 4, 6, like in the army, 7, 8, 10. All right, can I come just a few steps closer? Please. He didn't run. Instead, he seemed to welcome me. I want to get up there with you. Yeah, I do. I kept wanting to get closer. Was he the same horse? Even after I checked the video, I wouldn't be able to tell. There's something about Cerbats on tops of ridges that make them special to me.
Seeing the wild horses, the freedom, looking them in the eye, sparks my creativity.
November, 3 months since I reconnected with them in the summer. Before a Mustang search, I like to stretch out a bit and take in the country. And I'm flooded with memories, most of them great ones, like of the April Cerbat. The only horse I've seen alone, although I'm sure his band was just over the ridge somewhere. It took me an hour to get close, but once I was in, he let me stay with him for another hour. What a magnificent animal. You don't mind us down here, do you? You get one of those horse snorts? Let me hear you. Let me hear you. Come on. As I sat, I looked around and saw a water tank. Most people wouldn't think twice about it, but I feel grateful for the cattle people here. The Cerbats and the cows get along, and I can remember them playing, chasing each other around, and enjoying themselves. In many herds, cattle ranchers are crying for wild horses to be removed altogether. Here in the Cerbats, the cattle people seem to be tolerating, if not even helping out the herd. Cerbats tend to let women approach, but men had better identify themselves. And I discovered that I have already been, well, discovered. As usual, it's a gentle-looking mare who's checking me out. She'll tolerate me for about a minute, and then she'll begin to lead the young stallions away. So I know I need to find a stallion in charge and get his attention so he can figure out who I am and what I'm up to. My goal with every Cerbat group is to spend some time with them and get to know them. I use binoculars to find the lead stallion, and I've already seen his woodwork. It takes me a half hour to get to him. If I don't find a way to connect in a hurry, he'll be over the ridge quickly. Based on what I've seen of his personality, I decided to be a little over the top. You are beautiful. I'm not going to hurt you. You are beautiful in everything you do. I came all the way to see you. You look great. You are handsome. You are handsome. Yes, you are. I talk to the stallions and the mares differently. The herd will respond to the stallion in an impulsive way. He can get them to run on a whim. The relationship is going to be built with this lead mare, though. Hello, pretty mare. Hello. I see you. No worries. No worries. You have pretty eyes. Oh, he's going to take a run toward me, but not right at me, thank goodness. Yep, you are a pretty one. Easy. I am just being easy today. No worries. I see you. I'm not going to bother you. You've got your boys. You guys look great. You guys look great. Now I'm going to spend a little time. I want to get to where you guys are relaxed enough to eat again, to do some grazing. I'm just going to hang out. These mountains have had quite a history beyond just the Spanish, And to see these horses up here, I know what they've gone through. There's been a lot of mining back in here. There are not many reports of horses being shot. I've only heard of one. All of the special interests have pretty much worked with and around the horses, and the Wallapai Indians valued them. So the people here have not been destructive. They've not been anti-wild horse, and even those living here now seem to enjoy them. I don't know for sure what every gesture means among the Cerbats, but I know when their heads are close like this that it's good. And sometimes a plane going over their head will spook them and they hear a plane, but she's fixed on me. This group is an exceptional group to me. They have different colors, they all have different personalities. They like to get close to each other and they nibble at each other a lot, and I know that's not a bad thing either. They're looking at me, coming closer, trotting around me. All I know is that I like to enjoy them and they are enjoying me.
The Cerbats are very special and important to the citizens of Arizona. They're the purest, the genetically purest wild horse, I think, of all the wild horses. I think that Congress had it right in 1971 when they passed the Wild Horse and Burro Act. And what they said in that act was that wild, free-roaming horses and burros are living symbols of the history of the pioneer spirit of the West.
When you begin spending a lot of time with wild horses, the peace eventually turns to an issue.
They'll take it out. I better pull it out of there then.
The Bureau of Land Management Southwest holding pens sit at the base of the Cerbat Mountains.
See, like some of these horses now are starting to get sick because it's so dirty. So they're not going to get adopted.
The Cerbats are one of the few herds that aren't rounded up. As the years go by, I think that's what makes them so attractive to me.
I'm not going to hurt you, buddy. Oh, you're so dirty. You need a little bit cleaning up, don't you? A little affection? You curious?
I can distance myself from the injustices of wild horses, and the issues of why they are rounded up across the American West are always so muddled.
I'm sorry. It's okay.
Some foreign countries want horse meat. They compete with oil and gas interests. Those fighting the wild horse battle to protect them have a time frame before they tire out and hand the baton to the next generation. My journey of activism took me not only to the Bureau of Land Management pens and to Congress and to other places, but to local auction houses. And I'll never forget one on the Gila River Indian Reservation just outside Phoenix. These places are like the local landfill. It's where domestic and wild horses are taken to be dropped off and sold to, in many cases, not just the highest bidder, but any bidder. One horse in particular didn't want to go, and people who say horses aren't smart just needed to watch this guy. No matter what his owners or haulers or whoever they were tried to do, he wouldn't have any part of it. And they spent a long time trying to get this guy out of the trailer. He knew it was coming. Horses know people, and they know what their intentions are. Wild Cerbats do everything for a reason. Here, the lead stallion is getting close to the pregnant lead mare. She's voicing her displeasure with me being here, but still tolerating me, knowing I'm not a threat. And he wants to know more about me, so he'll start looking me over and figuring me out. If I'm close and I'm not a threat, it's a good thing to him, and he won't move the herd. Other horses are being wiped away. These horses are on the range. I think you're getting used to me. I think you're getting used to me now, aren't you? They won't face a brutal roundup this year, and they say it's because of the mountain lion predation, and I know that's a part of it. Neighbors I've talked to see mountain lions up here. But I believe it's like the transferrin gene. Cerbats adapt.
Boy, that's pretty.
Yes, it's an easy herd to be around, and it's a bit of a cop-out for me to be around a herd that won't be rounded up. But it's also great therapy. My return to the Cerbats to find the last of the Spanish Mustangs had now spanned 1 year. It had been 5 14-hour trips, but I'd been able to connect with wild Cerbats in 4 of them. Making my final departure home, I saw a lone stallion working the side of a ridge near Stockton Hill Road. I had to check him out. He met another stallion, and they ate and played on a steep ridge. I tried to get close, and they let me within the usual 30 yards. That was good for me. I took my daughter to the beach, where vacations ought to be, and she said that one day she would like to see the stallions with me. I told her that I would like that very much.